Okay. So if you're not speaking and if you can mute, that would be great. I know I hear some phones in the background there. Would be better for us. I think it's Miss Taylor. Maybe I'll mute her. There you go. Okay. Hi. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sophia King, Alderman of the Fourth Ward. This evening, we will be looking at the 1000M development. Again, this is our second town hall meeting, if you will, to look at some edits to the plan development that the developers are asking for. I know we had a meeting, wow, a couple months ago, perhaps, and there were some concerns that we really wanted to discuss further and also allow folks more time to look at some of the proposals that the development team is bringing forth. And to that end, we've also um, uh, been in conversation with our South Loop Advisory Council, for which Dennis McClendon, Dennis, can you wave at everybody? He is the chair of the development committee for that. Um, we are going to allow Dennis to kind of moderate the questions that come in and ask some of his own, as a longtime resident of the South Loop, who's been very interested in development, and as the development chair for our South Loop Advisory Committee, just want him to help me moderate this meeting tonight to make sure we get everyone's concerns answered to the best of our ability. Uh, so tonight we've got the 1000M development team with us, um, representing them and leading them in this effort in the city of Chicago is their attorney, Mr. Jack George. And without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to you, Mr. George, so that you can introduce your team and introduce um, whatever opening remarks you'd like to say. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Alderman, and thank you so much for hosting this meeting tonight. We really appreciate it. We appreciate all the people who are attending the virtual meeting too, who now are going to be able to participate in it. We appreciate the opportunity to make this presentation. With me tonight from our team is Francis Greenberger and Jerry Carlick, Jordan Carlick, and Robert Singer, who are the development principals in this project. Also with me tonight is Michael Berkshire, who is who was with KLOA, the traffic engineers that have done the traffic study on this property, and also my partner Chris Leach is with us. I would like to be able to go just through in the beginning and just go through and talk a little bit about the project. I think most of you have heard about it before, but I thought I would just go through and recite exactly why we're seeking this amendment to the plan development. And after I get through, I would ask Phil Castillo from Helmut Jan Studios to go through the PowerPoint presentation and explain of the design and of the project and so forth. And after that, we'd stand ready to answer any of the questions that any of you might have. With respect to the specifics about the project, previously we submitted this project back in 2016 to the Chicago City Council, and it was passed, and it's known as PD 1323. The address of this property, which all of you know, is 1000 South Michigan. It's presently a vacant site. If you see the property, you'll see that there are caissons that are in the ground for the construction of a building. As most of you know, the building was constructed and then stopped because of a number of different factors, COVID, financial issues that were coming up, and other things like that. And now we're seeking to go back and start this project, and that's why we're here tonight. This is a residential building, as was approved in 2016. the fabric of the building, the height of the building's come down 25 feet instead of 830 feet. It's now 805 feet. But the building design is the same as what was approved in 2016. What we're changing is that there was 506 units, and now we're having to go to 738 units. The number of cars at that time, we had 420 cars. We now have 320 cars that are parked in the garage. As I say, the design is the same. When we reduced the height of the building by the 25 feet, that also resulted then in a reduction in the height of the garage by 3 floors. So the garage is now shorter in height. We have 256 bicycle spaces. Since the last meeting, we did appear before the South Loop Planning Board and explained in detail this project again, and so that they could hear about it. They heard about it, and then gave us their comments, and then they've issued a letter of support for the project. This building also will meet the sustainable matrix of the city of Chicago with 100 points. We sought and are seeking a bonus to get additional FAR, which we, as part of our project, and that by getting that additional FAR, we'll be paying $447,937 into the neighborhood opportunity bonus for that. We have 23 affordable housing units on site, which was at the request of the alderman, which we agreed to do. We also agreed to increase the minority participation from 26 to 29% and 6% for WBE. We've met, as I with the Department of Planning, we met with the fire department, with the mayor's office of people with physical disability, with CDOT. We're just waiting for the approval from CDOT now. Landmarks, since this is an historic district, we met with them to see if they were okay with it, and they indicated that they were fine with it. And so those are the specific facts about the project. What I'd like to be able to do now is have Phil go through the PowerPoint presentation. And then, as I said before, at the end of it, all of us will be on our development team will be glad to answer any of the questions we can to the best of our ability. So Phil, can you go through the PowerPoint presentation?
Phil?
Phil, are you on?
Yes, I'm on. I'm trying to get to the screen here.
Great, thanks, Phil.
Okay, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so here is, this is just a short presentation for those who have not seen it. Many of you have seen this presentation before. There's a few more views in it. The building was always conceived as a tower fronting Michigan Avenue, and it did two things. Number one is it kind of became part of the anchor with the other towers at the south end of Grant Park, but it also responded to the historic Michigan Boulevard street wall by having a more rectilinear base that steps down from 910 to 1006 Michigan. And then it also, so that it gives that reinforcement to the street wall that extends from Randolph down to 11th Street.
Phil, can you maximize the screen somehow? Maybe in the corner of the green button, sometimes that maximizes everything.
Nope. Yep. There. How's that?
It's better.
Let's see if
Yeah, there's generally a way.
There should be another button that allows me to do that. I think this is about as big as I can
get. Or under view, but that's okay. I think we're okay. Sometimes you can eliminate the side and it'll just pop on the whole screen.
If you type Control-L.
Oh, that's not doing it.
Okay, no worries. I think people can see it. And on your own screen, you can often make it larger and make the participants smaller, so you can also,
Oh, view, here we go, full screen mode.
yeah, there you go. All right,
Okay,
thank you very much.
okay, so, and off we go. Now I can't,
You can click your arrow maybe on your computer to the right, and it'll,
what I just did, and it,
or the screen itself, it'll move it.
there.
Okay,
Okay, so here we have this is the view from the south, from the southeast, looking from Roosevelt Road across this wonderful sculpture in Grant Park, or a series of sculptures. And the building really remains basically the same. There have been some refinements to the top. As Jack mentioned, the building is 25 feet shorter. But it's still this idea of a more solid base with a more glassy tower. No. Okay, oops. All right, the view from the northeast, looking down Michigan Avenue to the south. This is an old photograph, so it doesn't have the NEMA tower in it. This is a view, a street level view at Michigan Avenue, showing the entrance to the building. There's this, where my hand is the passage, 20-foot passage between 910 and our project 1006 to the left. And this screen passage, this screen element here was added as part of the requirement to provide a continuous street frontage on Michigan Avenue, which is a requirement of the Historic Michigan Boulevard Ordinance. Okay, this is just a site plan that shows the relationship of the tower to 910, 1006, Columbia College, the East-West University property to the west. An elevation. This was the elevation that was submitted as part of our planned development, maximizing the height of the building at 805 feet. And it shows its relationship to both 910, 1000, and 1006, 11th Street on your left, 9th Street on your right. This is the entire site plan of the ground floor that really kind of shows the circulation in and around the site. You know, the Michigan Avenue ordinance prohibits us from having any drop off on Michigan Avenue or any curb cuts. So we had to come up with a kind of an alternate way to access the site. And this piece of property here is part of our assembly of sites, which consists of 1006, the site that you all see, and the small parking lot to the west, it's just north of this park. So all automobile traffic comes through Wabash, through the Porte Cochere, either into or out of the garage, and then exits to 9th Street through through a dedicated easement for this project. All the loading docks are located here behind the Columbia College building, and they're entered and accessed from Wabash. So the idea here is to kind of really limit the traffic on Michigan Avenue. You know, of course, you know, people are going to say, yeah, just, you know, if they're taking a taxi or an Uber, are just going to say, oh, just leave me off here. But the idea is that they leave you off at the rear lobby, and then they exit and that's how deliveries are handled and all those other kind of things that make an urban building function. There's a larger scale ground floor plan that shows the Michigan Avenue lobby, the elevators, what we call the Porte Cochere lobby, the things that support the building, the mail room, the package room, leasing center, parking lobby that services the parking garage, access to the parking garage, and then all these back of house things that we need, like the electric vaults and switchgear rooms, emergency generators, and loading dock. This shows Tier A, which is the lowest levels of apartments that front Michigan Avenue. They're in front of the parking structure. And these go through from floors 5 through 7. Floors 2 and 3, or floors 3 and 4 are actually a fitness center. The lobby is a 2-story space with the building management office on the north side. And then at the level 8 is the amenity deck. This portion is outdoors. There's the support spaces that are normally associated with a residential high-rise: lounges, media rooms, game rooms, an indoor pool and an outdoor pool, and an outdoor kind of just garden. Above that is a rectilinear floor plate that I had talked about earlier. They're called the Tier B apartments. And then above that are the various apartment levels. As you saw in Tier B, there are more smaller apartments lower, and as the building gets taller, the apartments get larger. Here's a section that shows the tower fronting Michigan Avenue. And you see this is the parking, this is the top of the parking garage, which is the amenity deck, which is 91 feet above grade. And then there's 121 feet here that's the top of this wing of apartments that is part of our bonus structure for our FAR. This is the bulk regulation table. The upper half is what was submitted as part of our plan development amendment. That kind of gives you the various site areas, the total square footage of the building, including 1006. So the new building is 903,455 square feet. The existing 1006 is 78,881. So the total is 82,000 square feet and change. 738 apartments, 320 parking spaces, 356 secured bicycle spaces. There are additional bike racks on Michigan Avenue as mandated by the Department of Transportation, as well as the what we did in the Port Cochere we have. So if somebody's riding a bicycle there and they just need to park on a temporary basis, they can do that in the Port Cochere. From last time, there's some comparative data because a lot of these questions came up. Before we had 506 residential units, and we've increased it to 738. The population of the building, which is determined through a program that we use to determine the number of elevators, was 1,031 people at the previous design before the project stopped. It is currently 1,085, and the reason is we have a lot more smaller units than we did last time. So the increase is fairly small. Before, the total number of studios and 1-bedroom units was 217, and the remainder were larger units. In this case, it's 562. We've decreased the amount of parking spaces from 440 to 320. And so we talk about the traffic report later, you'll see that'll get explained in a little more detail. But when people with studios and 1-bedrooms generally do not have cars and they rely on car sharing services. The parking bicycle spaces we talked about before. The height of the parking structure, this is an important for the residents of 910, has been reduced from 119 feet to 91 feet. And that wing, that residential wing that to the north that has amenities and one level of apartments has been reduced from 143
Chris Leachin.
143 feet 6 inches to 121 feet 3 inches. So it's a 22-foot reduction in height on the west side of the building. And I just closed with this view from Grant Park in the northeast, showing the assembly of buildings that are under construction and what we're planning to build, or the buildings that have been
Good to hear you.
completed recently and what we've planned to build now. So I'm going to try to stop sharing and turn it back over to Jack.
I'd like to ask Michael Worthman. A little while ago, I gave him a different last name. It's Michael Worthman is the man from KLOA, who's our traffic engineer, who I've worked with for a long time. But we did an updated traffic study. And Michael, could you just go through and I know that Phil talked a little bit about the entrance off of Wabash and also the exit onto 9th Street. Can you explain how the residents will use it and then how any loading and unloading will occur and how they enter and exit the site?
No problem. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
My name's Michael Worthman. I'm a principal with Kenneth Lindgren, O'Hara Buna, KLOA Inc. We performed the traffic study on the original development as well as the proposed changes in the development plan. As you've heard, one of the significant design elements which will help to mitigate the impact of the development is the development of the Port Cochere. This is significant in the fact that all of the drop-off pickup activity, access to the parking garage and access to the loading docks will all be done internal to the site. Will not be done on the external street system. Access to the Port Cochere, inbound access for passenger vehicles will be from Wabash Avenue. They'll come in off the existing alley easement into the Port Cochere where they could drop off and pick up Uber, Lyft, taxis, or enter into the parking garage. All of the passenger vehicles will exit onto 9th Street. This is another significant benefit in that we're distributing that inbound and outbound traffic to 2 different streets and not concentrating it all on one street. It should be noted that access to the loading docks will be provided, inbound and outbound will be provided via Wabash Avenue. But the majority, or all of the deliveries will be enter and exit the loading docks from the access drive from Wabash Avenue to the Port Cochere, minimizing or eliminating any back-end traffic from Wabash Avenue, which is another significant benefit to the design of the building.
Thanks, Michael. I appreciate it. I think now, Alderman, we'll answer any questions. Dennis, if you want to moderate the questions, we'll do our best, Dennis, to answer your questions and direct them to the proper people to answer. So we're ready to.
Well, thank you. And thank you to the team for the presentation. Dennis and I are going to do this together. We're going to, so Dennis is kind of the expert. He may kind of weigh in on questions and have a few of his own, but we're going to start with asking folks if they have questions to use the raise your hand function. And my chief of staff, Prentice Butler, will take down the names as he sees them to the best of his ability. It seems like we've got one person up now, but we'll wait just a little bit to see if we've got a couple other questions. What I would like to do, and we'll see how it works, if you've got a clarification question, unmute yourself and just say, clarification for that purposes. If it gets out of hand, then we'll just have to wait for the raise your hand function. But I think, if we can obviously be respectful of people and, making sure that we're being polite, I think we can do this, because sometimes a question is asked and then there might be a clarification of that question or a slight follow-up. And I'd like for people to be able to respond appropriately. So we're using the raise your hand function. to ask questions. However, if you have clarification or just a quick follow-up, we're going to allow that as well. Prentice, who do we have first?
Jim Wells is first alderman.
Okay, and just like to shout out Mr. Wells too as a member of not only the South Loop Neighbors, but also the South Loop Advisory Council as well. Mr. Wells?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I'm attending as both Vice President of the Grant Park Advisory Council and President of the South Loop Neighbors. This development as proposed will shadow Grant Park, our city's most important public space. I think in most circles, when talking about urban design, it's generally considered a best practice not to allow new buildings to put public parks in a permanent shadow. 800 feet is still almost double the height of the existing buildings in the historic district. It's my understanding that this meeting is taking place because of the changes that have been made or proposed, and that the proposers need the city's approval to proceed. So in reality, this is like a do-over, a chance for the city to make the right decision. So my question centers on the reasons why I am opposed to this project. I'd like to hear the developer's justification for disregarding the shadowing effect of Grant Park, as well as disregarding the current existing height limit in the near south community plan of 425 feet. So that's the question.
I can just, maybe Phil can do it too, but I'd like to just say that when we first went to the city with this, we talked to the city's landmarking division, Eleanor Gorski, specifically about the 425-foot regulation that you're speaking of, and they changed that to allow us to put that in, finding that this building was compatible with the surrounding uses and in the area that it was in. And so they found and granted us the authority to go up to the height limit that we asked for, and that the 405-foot restriction was not going to be imposed on the structure. Phil, you may want to talk more about the shadow study and things like that, but I just wanted to clear up the issue about the 425 feet. Phil, do you want to chime in on the shadow study?
There's, I'm not going to say there's not going to be shadows, but, there will be shadows, and, but the shadows are always kind of a moving thing. I believe the park will not be shadowed till after 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, because at that point, that's when the sun's coming around from the south to the west. In the summer, the shadows are less steep, in the winter they're longer, and that's all I really can say about it.
These issues were raised back in 2016 when it went before the Plan Commission, the Zoning Committee, and the Council, and they all approved the building, finding that it would be a building that would be properly fit into the area that it was being sited at, which was 1000 South Michigan. And so those issues were considered and found to be ones that would not be adversely impacting the park and or the neighborhood.
That's why I said this is like a do-over.
Well, it's really not a do-over. This is a plan development that was approved by the full city council.
Right. Do you need additional approval right now to proceed?
What we need now is we're amending it because we're increasing the number of units, but the building that was approved by the council remains the same, except for it's being reduced by 25 feet in height.
Right, but my question is, you need approval.
Sure we do. We have, because we're increasing the number of dwelling units, we need approval. You're
Thank you.
correct. You're correct.
I'm muted. So yes, they are amending the plan development, and to amend plan development, you have to go before not only the Plan Commission, but the City Council. I wouldn't think of it as exactly a do-over, but it has to go before Plan Commission and City Council approval again. So you do get to revisit some of the issues. That's why we're here. But I'd also like you to think of it in the context of this was approved. It was approved prior to my tenure, right? Before my tenure. I've always said that, major development that comes through the community, I want to understand and hear the community. And within the lens of, this was approved, this building was approved at one point, but we are listening to your concerns. So, Mr. Wells, did you have anything else?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Butler, who do we have next?
Ms. Chabaluski?
Is that me, Ann Sabolskis?
Yes, sorry about that.
Okay.
I was gonna say,
Sorry.
if you got your name right,
You're trying.
So just to give folks context, if you can, you don't have to say exactly where you live, but maybe the 100 block, so we kind of understand, who we're dealing with, whether it's a neighbor that lives, right next door, or whether it's a neighbor that's several blocks, or maybe you're just in the city of Chicago. So if you can just let folks know who you are.
Sure. So I'm Ann. I live at the right at the just about 10,001 South on Plymouth Court. So just 2 blocks away from this site. And my question isn't about shade, but I do recognize the previous question because when high rise went up at 9th and State, it's like turning off the lights when the shadow comes to that building, and it is very dark in the shadow of the building. But that's not my question. I was just hoping to get a little more detail about the affordable housing units and what size of units in terms of number of bedrooms those would be.
I don't know, Jordan or Jerry or Francis or Robert, whoever wants to talk about the size of those.
I can answer that, Jack. So we had this reviewed by the Department of Housing, and they determined, well, the ordinance determined that we have 23 units are required. All of those units will be provided on site. But to answer your question, there will be 11 efficiency units of the 23. It fits in with the same market rate percentage of our units. We have 6 one-bedroom units. We have 5 two-bedroom units and 1 3-bedroom unit.
Okay.
And
Thank
that's
you. I have to say, I
roughly,
appreciate seeing these on site because we certainly need more affordable housing in the South Loop. So I appreciate that y'all are doing that on site.
yes, we're happy to do that, and we had discussed that earlier with the alderman. That's what she had asked, and we were like, and the developers were happy to accommodate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shabolsky. Say that one more time.
Sabolskis.
Sabolskis. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Sabolskis. Mr. Butler, who do we have next?
Ms. O'Donnell, Sharon O'Donnell.
Okay, Ms. O'Donnell and Mr. McClendon, feel free to weigh in at any point. I lost you on here, but I know you're here somewhere.
Hi, I live at 910 South Michigan on the 2nd floor, southeast corner. And I'm very happy about the setback, but I have questions about the screen because that will affect me and probably the 3rd floor unit on this corner.
The screen is a perforated metal screen, so it has about, visibility of about 60% or so. This was approved in the previous plan development, but the screen, the historic Michigan Avenue street front or a boulevard district ordinance requires a continuous street wall. In this case, from 9th Street to 11th Street. We actually tried to get rid of it.
Oh,
And-
thank you.
And Landmarks essentially said no, that we had to provide this, so it was kind of reintroduced back into the project. But you should, it'll have some visual porosity, so
Okay,
in some
you
days.
can't make it any thinner for more visual, whatever that word
Well,
was.
we can fool around with it, but I think there's a point when the metal is not rigid anymore, and it just, it's going to look worse than it is. we've done this on a couple of buildings. I don't know if you're familiar with what we did at IIT for State Street villages. And if you look at there's these sally courts or courtyards, and they have this kind of higher perforated screen. And, you know, it's when you're in there looking out, it's kind of like it's not there.
Oh, let's hope so. Okay, thank you.
No, thank you, Ms. O'Donnell. And at some point, can we perhaps, especially if there's another question about the building, just kind of flip to that page in the presentation so people can, you know, really get a visual of what the questions are detailing.
Phil, can you put up one of the renderings of the building?
Yeah, I was referring to the screen. I think you showed in
Yeah.
the presentation as well. Yeah. It's being kind of hidden by the tree right there, right? Is that what you're referring to, Ms. O'Donnell?
Yes, that's what I was referring to. Yeah, my window is right there behind the tree. Yeah, the first, like right above the trunk. Yeah.
And it looks rather see-through right now. Is that
Rather, yeah. But
a good rendering of it, Phil, or whoever?
Phil.
Phil, you're muted there.
There we go. Okay, it's rendered pretty accurately. This is pretty much what you would see. It looks more like a veil.
mhm. I guess it is what it is. So thank you.
Okay, so who do we have next?
Eric is next.
Okay, Mr. Humbert, can you turn on your video and?
I'm not sure if I can turn on my video. Sorry.
Okay,
I'm at a Burnham Park Plaza, 9th and Wabash. I'm wondering about when the last traffic study was done, over what days of the week and times was the traffic data collected?
Michael, can you answer that? It was in, Michael, can you answer?
We recently updated our traffic study. Given the COVID pandemic now and that traffic volumes are not normal in the area, we use the traffic counts that we conducted as part of the original study, and then increase those volumes to account for growth in the area and other developments in an area to establish a 2021 base traffic volumes. So we use the previous counts, increase them for ambient growth in the area, as well as specific developments that have been constructed during that time. And then we projected those base volumes to a certain year, providing additional ambient growth and additional developments in the area. So we layered that traffic up to project out several years after the build out of the development.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
all right. Next,
Ms. Anderson.
Yes, my question is, how affordable is affordable? I believe you all said that it was also a 2-bedroom. That's my question. What's the price range?
60% of MAI, but Robert Singer, do you have a handle on what the price range would be for the affordable units at all? Or Jordan or Jerry?
Not sure that we have it immediately available, but maybe we could be in touch with you and provide that information to you. It's a calculation that's done
Mhm.
relative to income, so
Oh,
it has
okay.
to be affordable by people earning 60% or less of the median income of that area.
Okay.
So we could do that calculation and provide a copy, provide you or provide
Right.
the alderman with that information.
So we'll, Miss Anderson, we can have that information before this presentation ends. We just have to pull it up, but it based on income as well as size of household. So it varies, for a 2-person household versus a 3-person or 4-person, what that is. But I guess you could give also what the cost of the units will be as well. Someone?
Does someone on our team have just a general idea of what the cost of a unit would be to rent in this building?
The market rate.
Right. The market rate rents.
Rob, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, I mean, the market rate units are going to range from, they're going to start at $2,200 and go all the way up to penthouses that are more than $10,000. But the affordable units are on a particular schedule that works out to about $1. It seems to work out to about $1.40 per square foot per month. So about 25% of the market rate.
So as an example,
So 25% of 2,200, we can do that pretty readily.
Yeah, I mean, a 1,000 square foot apartment would be $1,400.
and an efficiency.
A 500 square foot apartment would be $700.
Mm. Thank you.
Welcome.
Yep.
Okay. Who do we have next?
Mr. Lammers.
Thank you. 2 quick questions. I'm at 910 South Michigan, and in fact, the president of the board there. But with respect to egress coming off on 9th Street, we have 3 garage exits, in the same area. Do you have any sense of how you would control traffic since you have many more units than we do, and therefore there's going to be a lot of traffic coming onto 9th Street in terms of making sure that we don't have any incidents with respect to our people? Secondly, previously when there was supposed to be ingress and egress along 9th Street, I think there was proposed a 25-foot wide lane for that traffic. And I'm wanting to make sure we have still the same understanding that in addition to the 10 feet plus that we have to the west of our building, there would be an additional 5 feet of easement that would be maintained in order to accommodate your traffic exiting from your property.
Hi, this is Michael Worthman again. I can answer the first question. As we come out of the alley, For the easement, our traffic will be under stop sign control, similar to the exit from your garage, as well as the parking lot to the north and the other access drives to the north, the alley. And there's excellent sight lines that everyone can see, and each vehicle will proceed as they feel there's a sufficient gap in the 9th Street traffic. Given the existing volumes on these other access drives, which are relatively low, even that coming out of your garage, but our traffic volumes shown that are not significantly high, that this can all be accommodated on 9th Street. 9th Street has the capacity to accommodate this additional traffic. And once again, we're splitting that traffic, so it's really only outbound traffic. We don't have the inbound traffic at that location. As to the second question, I'm going to flip that because I'm not sure of the exact answer. I will let someone else answer the second question on our team.
Chris, do you have that information there?
I do, Jack. Yes, Mr. Lammers, you are correct. There is a 5-foot easement, or actually it may even be the 910 property. There's a 5-foot space behind your building, but then beyond that 5 feet, there is a 25-foot easement for a total of 30 feet behind your building that will accommodate the egress from our building and the ingress and egress from your building.
Okay, because as you probably understand, that's our loading dock area.
Yes.
For garbage collection and other deliveries and moving vans and so forth. So that's critical for us in terms of maintaining that access.
Right, and yes, and there is, like I said, a total of 30 feet behind your building to allow that that ingress and egress from your building, your loading, and then the egress from our building.
And all our loading goes in and out off of Wabash, so our loading will not be going onto 9th Street at all.
And a two-way access drive is typically 20 or 22 feet. So you have sufficient room for the activities that need to occur there.
Okay. Who do we have next?
Butler Adams.
Mr. Adams?
You hear me?
Yeah. Hi, Mr. Adams. How are you?
Pretty good. How are you? I'm outside, so if you hear residual noise, it's because of that. I've been following this project for a very long time, since the first meeting at East West University, like in 2016. So I've seen a lot of different changes in this building, and of course, I'm still for it. I was wondering when the developers were planning to go back before Plan Commission, because I guess this is under like lakefront protection. So I'm wondering when that's going to happen and when construction will resume. I had another question about kind of the property tax that in way back notes, it said over 10 years, the building would bring in about $105 million. I was wondering, has that changed, seeing as the building would no longer be condo and all rental? My other quick question is, there was a question about about how Michigan Avenue has to have the street wall continuous, and over that breezeway between, I guess it's 910, I was wondering why the facade was not continuous just over the breezeway. It seemed like it was kind of two different materials over the breezeway and the building itself. And it seemed like it would be better visually if the building's facade just continue east and meet up with the facade of the older structure. And the last quick comment is someone made a question about height. And if I remember correctly, with the historic district, I think the height limit is now about 900 feet. Mr. George can correct me if I'm wrong. And with this building being 805, that comes in under that. And that's all I have right now.
So, Mr. Adams, first of all, if everybody just for context can give, kind of where you live.
Oh, yes,
I know you, Mr. Adams, because I always appreciate your questions with all of the buildings in the area and throughout the city, quite frankly. But if you could just kind of let others know who you are, and then ask, your first question first and let them answer it, and then I'll allow you time to
okay. Sorry about that. I live on the south side in Woodlawn. I actually went to IIT, so I watched Helmut Jahn's dorms be constructed there. So I'm familiar with the working with the architecture, and I give architecture tours downtown and have for 20 years.
Okay, first question, Mr. Adams.
I was curious as to when this is going to go back before a plan commission, and when construction would resume.
Got it.
It's our hope to go back to the Plan Commission on June the 17th, which is the third Thursday of the month in June for the Plan Commission, and then hope to go to zoning if we can on the 21st. I don't know for sure that that's the date of the zoning committee, but I think that might be it. And then go to the council on June the 23rd. So that's our hope. And so providing everything works out, but that's our hope, is when we can get it before the Plan Commission. Now, some of the other questions you asked can be answered by Phil, but if you ask your next question, Butler, then we'll try to answer them by the appropriate people. I think one of your questions was about that perforated area along Michigan Avenue, and Phil, maybe you can answer that question.
Phil, you're muted again.
Phil?
I'm unmuted now.
Okay. Phil, can you answer the question that Butler asked concerning
Let me get the image up.
Yeah, that's it right there. Yeah.
In the very beginning, we actually had a scheme that extended the facade, and we kind of, it looked just kind of foreign to the building because there was no ground floor image, because we wanted to keep this passage open. If you go back in kind of history and look at the various arcades around the world, they generally have their own identity, and we wanted to kind of treat that like this. You know, we wanted this space to have its own identity and not have this kind of facade just continuing out over the building. It kind of becomes a mediating element between the tower and between 910 South Michigan.
What's your next question, Butler? I know you had some more.
Seeing as I have you on the line right now, correct me if I'm wrong, but the height limit in the historic district there along Michigan Avenue, I think was set at like 900 feet.
That's correct. That's correct. They changed it when we went to the Landmarks Commission first with this and met with the city. And at that time, as I say, we met with the people at that time, and then Eleanor Gorski, who was in charge of it, they then agreed that they would change the height limitation from 425 to 900 feet. So our building comes in under the 900 feet. So we are in conformance with the regulations of the city.
My next quick question is, because this is going from condo to all rental, how does that affect the amount of money and tax revenue the building generates? Does that increase it, or is it nominal? Is that
I can answer that if anyone wants me to.
Just, who are you?
Sure, I'm Rob. I'm with the development team. The way it works out is that the taxes on taxes on condos are about double what it is for rental buildings. So I know that our tax studies show that this building as a rental will be paying around 5 million to 5.5 million per year. And if I remember correctly, under the condo scheme, it was closer to 10 million. Yeah. So again, that's nothing we have control over, but that's just what the tax system does in Chicago.
Okay. And the last question is there any expectation as to when construction would resume? And thank you for your time.
Do you want to take that, Francis, or do you?
Sure. So I guess our hope is, depending on, we have a number of elements that we have to pull together, this process, of course, being key. I think if things go well, we could hope at some point this fall to commence. In the worst case, it might go over to spring, but I think our hope is that by this fall, assuming this process and other processes that we have to complete all come together at the right point in time. Thank you for your questions.
Okay. Any other questions? I know, Mr. McClendon, you have some of your own.
Yeah, Mr.
Wanna
Hart.
jump in?
Mr. Hart has raised his hand again.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Rob Hart, I'm in the South Loop. I live at Dearborn Park 1. I'm also part of the advisory council and have a community group that I call Chicago South Loop Explorers. Kind of building on the question about the garage exits. The first thing I wanted to ask was, 9th Street's pretty narrow. Have we considered the bike traffic and other people kind of, accessing that road in terms of, adding the traffic both for the people who are there as well as, materials coming in and out for the building?
Hi, Michael Worthman again with KLOA. Yeah, we've looked at all of that. CDOT has looked at it too. Everyone from CDOT to ourselves are comfortable with the access drive at this location. The street is sufficiently wide enough to accommodate the additional traffic. There's sufficient reserve capacity along 9th Street and its intersections with Wabash and Michigan Avenue to accommodate the additional traffic.
And that includes the pedestrian bike riders, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Second question I have is, maybe it's a little bit naive on my part, but if the building weren't able to sell out when it was going to be condo, given the price points of the units and the square footage and the size and the context of the neighborhood where we've got a tremendous amount of rental already, what's the commitment that we know? Has there been studies that we actually have a demand for this number of units? And or are we, building a building that will be filled up by like 45 or 50%?
Do you want me to take some of
Yeah,
that, Francis, or do you?
Yes, please. Please
Okay.
respond.
Of course, these two different markets, these are two completely different markets, condo and rental. And we have been working closely with Luxury Living Realty in Chicago, who's the leading rental agent and consulting group. And, the short story is, yes, there is going to be tremendous demand for this. We saw NEMA lease up relatively well in a tough time even, which is around the corner. And I mean, most importantly, what we're seeing is that there's a couple of buildings delivering this year, one Chicago, Cascade, but actually the pipeline for new rental product over the next few years is actually pretty light. And so we see us delivering into a pretty tight market, believe it or not. And there's been plenty of buildings that are in this area and all over the loop that are of this size that have leased up really well. And we think we've got a great product and we'll lease up really well.
Just for clarification, when would you plan to lease up by?
Well, the construction time period is going to be about 3 years. We would, we think that it's going to take 2 full years to actually get the building to 90-95% occupied. So we're looking at a 5-year time period. I mean, there's some overlap because we'll be pre-leasing towards the end of construction, but we have the confidence of all the experts. I mean, Luxury Living in particular, but other rental experts too, that the demand for this product is going to be there because this is what people want right now. They don't want, for whatever reason or another. I mean, sometimes it's people want more condos. Right now, we're living in a world where in Chicago and other urban areas, rental product is what people want. They want sort of studios and 1-bedrooms with big amenities, and so this is exactly what we've designed and what we and our consultants believe is going to rent really, really well and make everyone proud.
No, I might just add that the paradigm of living in a building that like this, which has so heavily amenitized with common spaces is a little different than living in a building that has less common space. It's because you not only, in a sense, live in your apartment, but you also live in the common areas of the building. And many of your day-to-day activities may take place in those areas. And what the market is saying is having that proximity of, people could presumably join a fitness club somewhere else. They could, have outdoor space somewhere else. But the market likes people, like the idea of having it within the context of their living environment. And that's why there's a lot of interest in this kind of building, which is a little different than the traditional urban buildings of the past that didn't have these kinds of common living areas or amenities.
Okay. Did that answer your question, Mr. Hard? Do you have additional ones?
No, that was really helpful. And yeah, we do have other buildings that are similar in the neighborhood that have those shared common spaces and also have different price points. I was just curious about the volume of units and given the price point and the demand. And then I didn't want to introduce it as in a post-pandemic environment, which we'll hopefully be, but should something happen again, all those shared services and shared amenities get shut down where people can't access them. So it becomes really critical that we're making sure that if we're designing space for the future, that we're designing space that's going to be probably more than the 300 or 400 square feet, where somebody may have to be living and staying in for varying health reasons. Should we face something in the future? But that's a different discussion.
One of the things that a building like this has is a lot of outdoor area, which of course during the pandemic became even more important. So that's one of the advantages of this kind of building. It would be true that some of the common areas during the pandemic would be closed, but the open areas, just like the parks and places like that, could remain open, although the use of them might be restricted in terms of the number of people who could be on them.
Correct. My point being is that when services are shut down at that point in time, especially when you have a transient community that might be rental, that would be the time when people would actually leave, and we would find ourselves with empty buildings standing next to condo buildings, having a financial impact potentially on condo owners who actually have a longer term investment on an individual basis versus potentially a rental building or their rental neighbors.
Well, I can only tell you, because we don't have any active for sale condo as in Chicago at the moment, but I can tell you in New York, which is similar kind of environment, that even though in the rental environment, you're quite correct that many people left during the pandemic, they consolidated, they moved and lived with their families and home, parents, things like that. We did see that actually sales of condos and co-ops in New York, where we do have inventory, particularly in a certain price range, continued throughout the pandemic. I guess people saw it as a good buying opportunity. And I'm not talking about deeply distressed prices. I'm talking about prices that were within 5 or 10% of peak pricing, some of them even at peak pricing. But for whatever reason, people perceived it as an opportune time and were continuing to commit to the city. So it's a little bit counterintuitive, but that's what happened. Now, I can tell you in April that our company in New York rented, it was exact reverse of the pandemic period, 5 times as many apartments as people who left. So This month, we rented 31 apartments versus 7 vacancies, so it was accretive in about a 4.5 to 1 ratio.
That sounds great for New York. We're the South Loop, but thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome.
All right. Who do we have next? And I want to be, Dennis, if you want to hop in between, feel free, or if you want to wait, that's up to you. Do you want to hop in now or wait?
Let me start with a couple of modest questions. Can the architecture team work on getting up a complete south elevation? Do you have that as part of this presentation or something easily accessible? Basically, I want to see what it's going to look like over the top of the Columbia College Theater building. While they're working on that, the next question would be about the small retail space, lease space, I think the PD calls it, on Michigan. That's what, 1,100 square feet? No black iron?
This is Jordan Karlik. The retail space on Michigan was eliminated. That'll be part of the leasing center for the building.
So, all right. So there's no retail in the base of this building at all?
Correct.
Nothing to activate the frontage at all?
Correct.
You have the south elevation to see what it looks like over the top of the Women's Club building, the Columbia College Getz Theater.
You have that there, Phil, that you can pull up? Phil?
While he's pulling that up, you want to ask another question?
Well, it's the $64 question. And this is for Mr. George, who knows very well that the city code requires any PDs to be consistent with plans that have been adopted by the Plan Commission. And the Near South Community Plan gives an upper limit of 400 to 25 feet for this corridor. That is not amended just because the Landmark Commission under a previous mayor adopted a higher limit. The limit is still 425 in this plan, and all PDs have to comply with adopted plans.
Well, I can check on that for you, but I can tell you that they previously approved an 830-foot building at this site, and they, I believe, and I'll have to check, Dennis. I thought that they also changed the limit to 900 feet for this corridor right in here. I'll verify that and I'll get you that information. But I think that's correct. What I said is correct. But I will.
You're not distinguishing between the Landmarks Commission and the Plan Commission. So Landmarks approved a 900-foot building, calling this a transition zone. But Plan Commission has never amended the Near South Community Plan, and City Code says PDs have to comply with adopted plans.
Well, I'll have to get you an answer on that, but I can tell you that when this came up before and they changed it, when the Landmarks Commission changed it, they did so with the understanding that this historic district would no longer be bound by a 425-foot limitation on buildings in this corridor. And so that's why they changed it. Now, the plan that you're referring to, I don't have it in front of me, so I can't read the wording of that plan that you're referring to. But, there are other buildings all along in this whole area that have exceeded 425 feet in the last few years. So I'm not sure of what you're referring to, but I will look into it. But I do know what happened with our building, and I do know what happened with Landmarks, and I do know what happened with their change in the heights of buildings in the historic district.
Specific building was also approved by the Plan Commission in 2016.
I said that earlier, Chris, that it was approved in the plan development.
But if that entitlement were all you were needed, we wouldn't be having tonight's meeting.
I'm sorry, what, Dennis?
If that previously approved entitlement were all that you needed to begin construction, we wouldn't be having tonight's meeting.
No, the reason why we're having tonight's meeting is because when you increase the number of dwelling units over and above what was approved in a prior plan development, it triggers an amendment to a plan development. That's why we're doing the amendment, because of the increase in the number of dwelling units. And that's the only reason. When you look at the code, and it spells out when you're required to do an amendment to a plan development, and it gives you there's 4 different categories that require it. If there's a change in the character of the development, if there's an increase in the number of dwelling units, if there's an increase in the number of in the FAR, any of those trigger an amendment, and we fall within that category, and that's what the amendment is about. No other reason.
All right, I think we have
We have the south elevation, if I may. And on the left part of it, you see, this is the elevation from 11th Street. So this is that small 4-story building. Right where my cursor is the 1006 building. This is the 10-foot alley in between. And to the left is the Columbia College building. So you see beyond is for 1 story poking up is this residential wing that extends over. And then there's 910 here. The tower is not behind the Columbia College building.
All right. So no part of the parking garage will be exposed above and behind the Columbia Theater building.
It's behind the Columbia Theater building. It's 14 feet away, which is the width of the alley. On the ground floor, it's almost 25 feet away. And then, but the garage itself does not extend above the Columbia Theater building.
All right. Any other questions, Dennis, or we can come back? Who's next, Prentice?
Stephen Gablenick.
Okay. Hello, Mr. Gavelnick.
Hello, good evening. Can you speak to the disruption that is going to occur during the construction phase? Can you tell us how many days a week, what hours of the day we can expect to have noise and other kinds of disruptions to the immediate community?
Well, let me just address that as best I can, and then anyone else on the team can jump in on that. We are bound by the regulations of the city with respect to the hours of operation, which are 8 to 5. We also are required to come up with a staging plan and set that out so that we cause the least amount of interference with traffic and operation of structures near us. So we're required to come up with that. This developer, in past developments that we've done, we've always worked with the aldermen and the community to work and give advance notice before we do any closure of streets or closures of sidewalks or anything like that. We give advance notice so that people know what's going to happen, and then we limit it and do it as quickly as possible so that inconvenience is not a permanent thing at all. But and all of the requirements now with the city, they request that you come up with a staging plan as to how you're going to do it so that you cause the least amount of inconvenience to the neighborhood. And that's what we plan on doing here. And the city has all sorts of regulations with respect to noise, hours of operation. Those are all codified in the city journal and in the city's ordinances. And we're required and bound to meet them and adhere to whatever those regulations are, in which we will be doing here.
Thank you. And in terms of location, we can imagine a parade of concrete mixers and trucks getting ready to unload. Where will those be staged? Along Wabash Avenue, I presume?
I assume that's correct. The contractor who's going to be doing the work, maybe one of my development team members has a better answer, but the contractor that's going to be doing the work is going to be required to come up with a staging plan so that you don't have, especially on Wabash Street, the traffic on Wabash being interfered with because that's a busy corridor. And so they'll be required to come up with that plan. The Department of Transportation, they have to work with them to make sure that it's acceptable to them. And so I don't know if anybody.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can speak to this. We've actually rented the parking lot that's behind our site on Wabash. And most of the concrete operation is actually going to take place off of Wabash on the parking lot that is to the west of us. So, so that's the answer. It's not going to happen on the street.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Berkey, is that who we have next?
Yes, Andrew Berkey.
Yes, so I'm Andrew. I live at 9th and State, so a block away. And I'm interested in the western Wabash elevation. Do you have any renderings of that? Because it sounds like it's just going to be a blank parking garage wall fronting the street with nothing on it. And I'm a bit concerned about that because a block away at 8th and Wabash, I've been reading the news about how that parking garage with nothing in it seems to be a crime magnet. But can you talk about the sort of pedestrian experience on Wabash?
Bill, are you on?
I'm bringing it up right now.
Okay, thank you.
Here's we do not come all the way to 9th Street. There's a parking lot that's the buffer between, it's about 100 feet between the Wabash sidewalk and our property. And so we have an architectural concrete wall on the west part of the garage, which you see here up for 8 stories. And part of the reason is because it's a common wall with an adjoining property line, we need to provide a 4-hour fire rating. And it's the most expedient way to do this. And, the city was very, when we met with Landmarks and the Department of Planning and Development to review this, they were very concerned about this, and they understood that there are technical issues that we had to address regarding fire ratings for adjacent properties, and they supported this solution.
And you said that setback from Wabash or not?
That setback, there's a parking lot that runs along Wabash, so our development, the physical building is 100 feet back from Wabash.
Yeah. And I guess second point to my question is, and I saw it in the chat, is I've experienced construction along Wabash closing the bike lanes for months on end. So I'd like to sort of put a shout out that bike lane, be kept open and not combined with the general traffic during the construction period.
We'll do our best, Andrew, to give consideration to that. As you can see, we definitely gave consideration to cyclists because of the number of bike spaces we have in our building. So that's And that's a big thing in this part of the city. So we intend to do it. And they'll do their best to make sure that those bike lanes are not closed and remain open. There may be some times, but whatever has to be done, we'll do it with the understanding that we will take into consideration, the cyclists in the area, because that's a concern, not only us, but it's a concern to the entire city and to the city government as to keeping those open.
I appreciate that. I'm sure there'll be future cyclists in your building as well.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Mr. Greenthal, Mr. Adams, I see your hands up again, but we're going to let people who haven't gone yet. And then we're also going to try and finish up, in around 5 minutes or so. So, Mr. Greenthal.
Yeah, my question has to do with short-term rentals, whether it be Airbnb or through a hospitality firm like Sunder. And my question is, will they be allowed? And if not, how will we be ensured that that policy won't change in the future, such as if you're finding a low occupancy rate?
There will not be any Airbnb, but maybe, I don't know, Rob, if you want to answer this question or not, maybe you do. But I know that this is a consideration. It was a question that was asked before. This will not be an Airbnb type of building. And we will more than likely, you can answer this, Rob, about putting a provision in the leases to the people indicating that these will not be rented out as Airbnbs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Jack, I thought we have like a general, it's not even included in our use,
Right.
in our list of uses.
Right.
Well, our plan development does not allow, the plan development uses does not allow a hotel use. So Sonder would not be able to rent out any units as a hotel unit. And nor would an Airbnb, which are vacation rentals, that is also not a use in the plan development. So you would know the only way that could be done is by another amendment, what we're doing here today. And so you would know whether or not we were seeking that, if we ever, not that we plan on that and don't plan on doing it as far as I'm aware, but if it ever happened, it would have to go back through the same process that we're going through right now, because it's not a permitted use in the plan development right now.
Yeah, it's just not permitted and we're not doing it.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Okay, Ms. Gilbert.
Hi there. I am in 910 next door, and I think your idea that everybody wants amenities, we all know that's true, and we see it in our building. So now that you're increasing 230 apartments, maybe 500 people, have you increased the amenities, or is everybody paying from top dollar, top space to bottom space, all using the same amenities that you had planned before?
The amenities are substantially larger. I mean, something on the order of double. So that's the answer.
And everybody uses the same ones?
Well, I mean, everyone uses the same ones. What do you mean? They're public. Yeah, they're.
Everybody has access to all the same amenities. There's not some amenities for some floors and some amenities for.
Oh, no, I see. So no, we do have one, like NEMA and others. We are planning to have one floor of our 6 or 7 amenity floors that would be dedicated to the top 30 or so floors, maybe 40. And those people at the top would pay. They're paying certain rent level, and they want a certain amenity program that has that. But I mean, largely it's open to everybody, and it's about 80,000 feet, which is similar to what NEMA has when you combine the inside and the outside spaces.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Adams, we'll let you close out the live questions, and then there are a couple in the chat. I just want to make sure that we got to all of those and
Okay.
so go ahead.
Just for again, the record name is Butler Adams, live on the south side. You all showed that western diagram, but I was wondering if there was any way that developers could create, or the architects could create an actual rendering of the western facade. I know that eventually that could be blocked because you have that parking lot on Wabash and something could be built there, but it would be nice to see how a different perspective of the building. We always see it from Grant Park, but never see it from the other side. And that being said, seeing that blank wall on the parking garage, has there been thought to maybe commission somebody from Columbia College like they did before, maybe make a mural on that blank wall so it's not so austere? That's all I have right now. Thank you.
I could say that that sounds like a good idea on the mural. We haven't really got that far. Of course, we're the one, we own 1006 and commissioned Columbia College to do the wall there. So we support we support that, and if the city will allow us to do it, you know, I don't know why we wouldn't. It's actually a very good idea.
Any follow-ups, Mr. Adams?
No, I was just wondering if a rendering of the from looking from the west side, from Wabash, a rendering of the building could be generated. We always see it from the east side, from the lakefront, from Grant Park, but never from the other side.
Sure.
I think they have. Do you have one?
Not enough. Not. I don't think we did I don't have one of this exact updated building, Phil. I'm sure if we dig through anyway. The short story is we'll get one done, and we'll pass it through the alderman, and she can distribute it to Mr. Adams or anybody else.
Okay, I'm going to quickly look at some of the questions that were in the chat. Make sure they were answered. If some of them are redundant, let me know. I did have to answer a couple of emergency calls here. Are the documents being presented available online, or will they be emailed to the group? We can do both. We generally put updated renderings on our website, king4thward.org. And we can also email them to the group, right, Prentice? I think we've got a list of everybody who's here as well.
We do. We can email it to the group.
Okay. I think we're .com and .org. Is that right, King?
It's .com.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Is there any retail in the building? Did you guys address that?
No, there is no retail. It had been there. There had been some retail going to be on the first floor, and that was eliminated. So it's no longer there.
Okay, thank you. Can you just repeat what you said about traffic control on 9th Street? I think that's important. Someone didn't hear it, but while I'm looking at other quick questions, can you repeat that, please?
Yeah, Michael Worthman again from KLOA. As you exit onto 9th Street, the Eastman Alley will have to yield right away to pedestrians and bikes and the traffic on 9th Street, similar to all of the other alleys or access drives along 9th Street in that area.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Who's financing the project? Did you guys mention that? I see some big signs behind some of the folks on the call, but if you guys can elaborate on that for everyone.
I'll take that one. Goldman Sachs is the lead lender. And it looks like they will have one other lending institution as a partner. And that arrangement is being finalized as we speak.
Right. And speaking of that, did you guys address, the major amendment going from, well, a change in units, obviously, but also going from condo to rent and what the rationale for that is?
I guess I can respond to that. The perception is that the financing markets find rental more consistent and more reliable than condominium buying habits, which tend to cycle with different economic environments. And the banks that originally were actively committed to financing the condominium when the pandemic occurred said that they're not comfortable proceeding on that basis in the pandemic environment. And so we changed to a rental scenario, which we felt would make them more comfortable. And that is in fact where we are today. That's part of the reason that we were able to get the lenders comfortable again, whereas during the pandemic, they were not.
Okay. And the last question, which was just added, when will the current building, 1006, be repaired for the scaffolding knock the northeast corner off? I think that's an immediate concern.
Rob,
Yeah, Jordan's going to.
Sure, I'll take this. Yeah, we are, we are evaluating the facade. We do that on an ongoing basis, and are in the midst of doing some repairs to the terracotta. So we expect that to come down, I would say, in probably the next 6 months or so.
Okay. I said that was the last one, but a quick one, someone asked, if approved, when would construction start? If everything goes as you want?
Okay, I did comment on that earlier, but I'll just say it again.
Yeah.
We have to get through this process, and a number of other things have to be finalized. And our hope would be that maybe we could start this fall, but if it turned out we couldn't, then it would be in the spring.
Okay. All right. Well, I would like to thank everybody for joining. Great questions. As was stated earlier, this is a process. This amendment to the plan development has to go through not only Plan Commission, but City Council as well. They'll be looking for my support as alderman for both Plan Commission and City Council. This is a decision, as I said, that was made prior to me for the original plan development that was passed. Now I am faced with a decision. I've heard, a lot of feedback about it, and I've heard, what the concerns are, and, I'm prepared to make a decision. I will let everybody know, what that will be in the next week or so. If you didn't get a chance to weigh in tonight, please send me an email at ward04@cityofchicago.org. Prentice, if you can, I think you put it in earlier, but if you can put that in the chat box, that would be great. So thanks everyone for joining us this evening. Thank you to the development team for your time, for you appreciating that community input and concerns are important. Thank you to the community for coming in and weighing in. Again, this is a decision that I'll be making soon in terms of my support or lack thereof for this particular development, but I appreciate all of your input. All right, thanks everyone, and have a
Thank you, Alderman King.
Thanks very much, Alderman. for
Thank
giving
you.
us the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman King.
Take care.
Thank you.